The grand atrium of Brookstone Medical Center looked more like a five-star hotel than a hospital that night. Crystal chandeliers threw light across a ballroom packed with round tables, white linen, and the kind of floral centerpieces that smell expensive. A jazz trio played near the stage while 300 physicians, donors, and executives clinked glasses for the annual Excellence in Care Gala. At the front, a giant screen looped photos of smiling doctors with captions about compassion and leadership. My mother, Dr. Celeste Warren, sat at the head table in a sea blue gown, posture perfect, laugh calibrated. People kept stopping to shake her hand, calling her the heart of Brookstone, as if she'd invented kindness. I was seated farther back with my boyfriend, Jonah, watching her accept admiration the way she accepted oxygen quietly, automatically, as though it belonged to her. 2 days earlier, she'd called me with the same tone she used for residents who disappointed her. "Hannah, you're coming," she'd said. "Leila Grant is presenting my award and the board likes to see family. Wear something appropriate. And please, for the love of God, do not talk about your freelance design work. Tonight is about medicine." I'd swallowed the familiar sting. I wasn't a doctor, wasn't even remotely interested in being one, and my little studio paid my rent just fine. Still, I showed up. Hair pinned, dress borrowed, smile practiced, trying to be a supportive daughter in a room full of people who spoke my mother's language and treated me like a footnote. An hour into the program, while the MC praised service above self, a dull ache started behind my right eye. I blamed the lights. The room was hot, and I'd barely eaten. Jonah squeezed my knee under the table. "You good?" he murmured. I nodded, took a sip of water, and tried to focus on the stage. The ache sharpened anyway, blooming into a pressure that felt wrong, too deep, too insistent. The edges of my vision shimmered, as if someone had smeared petroleum jelly over the air. I blinked hard. The chandeliers doubled for a second, then snapped back into place. I told myself it was a migraine. I'd had one in college during finals week. Stress does weird things, and my mother had a talent for making any room feel like an exam. When they announced my mother as the next honoree, applause swelled like a wave. She stood, gracious, chin lifted. Jonah leaned closer to whisper something about her dress. I opened my mouth to answer and realized my tongue felt thick, as if I'd bitten it. Then my left hand tingled. Not the pins and needles of a limb falling asleep, but a buzzing emptiness that spread from my fingertips to my palm. I stared at my hand on the tablecloth. It looked normal. It just didn't feel like it belonged to me. I tried to flex my fingers. My ring finger moved late, like a delayed caption. I sucked in a breath and tasted metal. Jonah's face blurred at the edges. "Hannah?" he said again, louder. "Your smile looks crooked." I pushed back my chair, intending to stand, but my left leg didn't cooperate. It was as if the floor had tilted and my body forgot the instructions. My head roared and the room narrowed to a tunnel of sound. Clapping, cutlery, the MC's microphone. Jonah was on his feet. "Someone get a nurse," he called. "I think she's having a stroke." The word stroke skittered across the nearest tables, turning faces toward me. My mother, halfway to the stage, snapped her head around. Her smile stayed on, but her eyes sharpened with irritation as she marched over in stilettos. "What is this?" she hissed, bending close enough that her perfume made me nauseous. "Hannah, sit up, you're fine." Jonah shook his head. "She's slurring. Her left side is weak. We need 911 now." My mother's jaw tightened. "She gets migraines," she said, louder for the audience. "She's anxious. Jonah, please don't cause a scene." Then, in a lower voice meant for me, she added, "Not tonight, don't do this to me." On stage, the MC had already introduced the presenter, Dr. 2, Leila Grant, the neurologist who'd built Brookstone's stroke unit into a national model. I'd seen her photo online. Silver hair, steady gaze, the sort of woman who looked like she could command an operating room with one lifted eyebrow. She stepped to the podium, then paused, eyes scanning the commotion. "Hold the program," she said into the microphone. The room quieted. My mother's smile wobbled for the first time. "It's nothing," she called, too bright. My daughter had a little too much champagne. Dr. Grant walked off the stage with brisk, purposeful steps and stopped right in front of me. She didn't look at my mother at all. She looked at my face. "Show me your teeth," she said. I tried. The left side of my mouth lagged. "Raise both arms." My right arm lifted. My left arm drifted like a leaf and dropped. Dr. Grant's voice hardened. This is not intoxication. This is a stroke until proven otherwise. Call 911. Start the clock. Everything after that happened in crisp medical bursts. Dr. Grant asked my name, the date, where we were. I knew the answers, but the words came out thick and slow, as if my mouth was packed with cotton. She checked my pupils with her phone's light and felt my pulse with 2 fingers, calm as if we were in an exam room instead of a ballroom. Jonah relayed that the symptoms started less than 20 minutes earlier. Dr. Grant nodded once. Possible candidate for thrombolytics, she said to the cluster of doctors gathering around us. No food, no drink. My mother hovered at the edge, face drained of color. Leila, she's 27, she insisted. This doesn't make sense. Dr. Kithing. Grant finally looked at her, and the disappointment in that glance felt louder than the entire room. Stroke doesn't care about your sense, she said. It cares about time. The paramedics arrived fast, guided through the crowd by a security guard and a physician who kept shouting, "Stroke alert." They slid a blood pressure cuff around my arm, checked my glucose, stuck electrodes to my chest. My left hand dangled uselessly over the stretcher rail. I heard Jonah arguing with my mother behind me. She tried to pull her away, he said, voice shaking. She kept saying it was a headache. My mother's heels clicked closer. I'm her mother, she snapped. I'm also a doctor. Dr. Grant's reply was ice cold. Then act like one. Step back and let the team work. As the stretcher rolled toward the doors, Dr. Grant climbed into the ambulance with us. University Neuro, she instructed the paramedic. Pre-notify CT. Symptom onset, 1942. She looked down at me. Hannah, stay with me. Squeeze my hand. I tried. My right hand squeezed. My left did nothing. The ride was only 7 minutes, but it felt like a lifetime measured in sirens and fear. Dr. Grant kept talking, anchoring me to the moment. Any blood thinners? Any recent surgery? Any head trauma? I shook my head. When my words wouldn't come, Jonah answered for me, breathless, sitting on the bench seat. At the emergency bay, a team in Navy scrubs met us and moved as one organism. CT first, someone said, then CTA. I was slid into the scanner, the machine whirring above my skull. A resident asked me to name objects in a picture. I could see them: key, apple, chair. My mouth refused to cooperate. Dr. Spelds. Grant stood at the doorway, arms folded, watching the screen with a focus so sharp it felt like a blade. After what seemed like hours, she exhaled. Right MCA occlusion, she said. Ischemic. We have a window. They explained the clot-busting drug like a contract read at high speed. Benefits, bleeding risk, why minutes mattered. Jonah signed where they pointed, my hand too weak to hold the pen. As the medication started dripping into my IV, warmth spread up my arm and into my chest, followed by a strange lightness, like my body was trying to remember itself. Straight to angio suite, doctor, Grant ordered. Prep for thrombectomy. Somewhere in the hallway I heard my mother's voice, sharp with panic. I need to see her. I'm family. A nurse replied, you can wait in the consult room. Dr. Darter. Grant didn't even turn around. Not now, she said. Not until we're done saving her brain. The words hit me harder than the headache. Saving her brain. The implication that it was in danger because of time we'd already lost. I don't remember the procedure, only the ceiling lights blurring into a river of white as anesthesia pulled me under. When I surfaced, it was to beeping monitors and the sour taste of oxygen tubing. My left arm was strapped to keep it still, but I could feel it faintly, like a radio station coming in from far away. Jonah sat in a chair, head bowed, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were pale. Dr. Grant stood beside him with a tablet, explaining what they'd done. We retrieved the clot, she said, voice controlled. Reperfusion looks good. She'll be in ICU for monitoring. Jonah's shoulders sagged with relief. Will she recover? He asked. Dr. Cover. Grant didn't promise miracles. Young brains heal, she said, but recovery depends on how much tissue was lost before the vessel reopened. Time is brain. My mother came in later after the ICU doors allowed it, wearing the same gown, like armor. Her mascara had smudged at the corners, but she held herself rigid, as though grief was unprofessional. Hannah, she said, and reached for my right hand. I watched her fingers hover over my left, then pull back, as if weakness might be contagious. "I didn't realize," she started. Jonah stood up so fast the chair scraped. "You were told," he said. "You dismissed her." My mother's gaze snapped to him. "You don't understand the pressure of that room," she said. "That ceremony." Dr. Grant's voice cut through from behind her. "There is no room more important than a patient in front of you," she said quietly. "Especially when the patient is your child." "Dr. Kappa." Grant asked Jonah to step out for a moment and pulled a chair close to my bed. The ICU hummed with ventilators and soft alarms, the sound of other people fighting for breath and time. "I'm going to be blunt," she said. "What happened at the gala wasn't just a family argument, it was a delay in emergency care." My throat tightened. My voice still came out raspy. "She thought I was pretending," I managed. Dr. Grant nodded. "I watched her try to move you away from help. I watched her attempt to reframe neurologic symptoms as embarrassment. If we had arrived 10 minutes later, you might not be speaking to me right now." She let that sit. "Hospitals run on protocols because feelings lie. FAST exists so we don't negotiate with denial. Facial droop, arm weakness, speech difficulty, time. You had all four." Over the next 2 days, swelling went down, and the fog in my head began to lift. Physical therapy arrived with a gait belt and a cheerful cruelty that made me want to cry. "Stand when you're ready," the therapist said. My left foot dragged. My left hand trembled like a nervous bird. Each attempt cost me sweat. Jonah stayed, feeding me ice chips and translating my frustration into patience. My mother appeared once, brief and stiff, bringing a bouquet that smelled like apologies. She didn't stay long. Dr. Grant, however, returned every morning to check my progress and to document everything that had happened. "The hospital ethics committee will ask," she warned me. "Because it happened publicly, because you were prevented from timely care, and because she's staff here." I stared at the ceiling tiles, trying to reconcile the woman who'd packed my lunch in 3rd grade with the physician who'd told a ballroom I was drunk. 3 weeks later, I was released to outpatient rehab with a plastic folder full of appointments and a list of words the speech therapist wanted me to practice. Statistics, specific, satisfaction. At home, I taped sticky notes to cabinets so my left hand would have to work. Open, lift, turn. Progress came in tiny victories: buttoning jeans, holding a coffee cup without spilling, saying my own name without tripping over syllables. In that same month, the hospital board reviewed the Gala incident. I wasn't invited to speak, but Dr. Grant was. Jonah came back from the meeting pale and furious. "They suspended her," he said. 6 months, mandatory ethics training, and she's removed from committee leadership. And the award ceremony? They voided it." He swallowed. "They're giving the honor to Dr. Grant for stepping in." My mother started calling after that, leaving messages that swung between anger and desperation. "They're ruining me," one voicemail said. Another, "I didn't know Hannah. I swear I didn't know." Her number lit up my phone like a warning light. The first time I answered, she spoke as if we were negotiating a business deal. "Come to lunch," she said. "We need to talk before people invent stories." My left hand cramped around the phone. "Mom, I am the story," I said. Silence, then a sharp inhale. "Do you understand what you cost me?" she whispered. The words landed in my chest like stones. "I cost you?" I repeated. "I almost died." She began to cry then, but even her crying sounded controlled, like she expected an audience. That night, Jonah and I sat on the couch with my rehab bands draped over the coffee table like colorful snakes. My body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't rest. I kept replaying her hand on my arm, trying to steer me away from help, and the way she smiled at strangers while I couldn't move my own face. Jonah turned the television off. "You don't have to see her," he said. "You can heal without performing forgiveness." I stared at my left hand as it struggled to pinch the remote. "She taught me how to read," I said, voice thick with grief. "And she also taught me, apparently, that appearances matter more than reality." The next day, I told the nurse handling family calls that my mother was not to be given updates unless I asked. It wasn't revenge, it was oxygen. For the first time in my life, I chose my own needs over my mother's narrative. At the 3-month mark, my neurologist declared me remarkably recovered, which sounded like praise until he reminded me that fatigue could bring the slur back and that my left hand might always be slower. I returned to my studio work in short blocks, designing logos with a brace on my wrist and taking breaks to stretch my fingers. One afternoon, an envelope arrived with a Mayo Clinic letterhead. Dr. Short, Grant had moved back to Minnesota and wanted me to attend a small ceremony where she would accept the Community Care Champion Award in my mother's place. I almost threw it away. Awards had started to feel like weapons. But Jonah read it twice and said, "This isn't about your mom. This is about the person who listened." So we flew out on a cheap flight, and I sat in the quiet conference room with maybe 20 people instead of 300, watching Dr. Persons Grant accept a plaque without flashbulbs or orchestra. Afterward, she found me by the coffee urn and asked about my hand. I showed her the tremor that appeared when I was tired. "It's annoying," I admitted, "but it's also proof I'm still here." Dr. Grant nodded. "Survival is allowed to be complicated," she said. "People want a neat ending. Bodies don't do neat." I hesitated, then asked the question that had been chewing at me. If she hadn't delayed, would I be 100%? Dr. Grant didn't lie. "Maybe," she said. "Maybe not. Medicine can't rewind the tape. But I can tell you this, you were treated within the window because someone insisted on reality. You did the rest." Her phone buzzed and she glanced at the screen. "Your mother emailed me again," she added gently. "She wants to speak to you." My stomach tightened. "I'm not ready," I said. "And I might never be." Dr. Grant's expression stayed steady. "That's a valid plan," she said. "You don't owe reconciliation to be a good person." On the flight home, Jonah slept with his head against the window while I practiced opening and closing my left fist. Stubborn. My phone vibrated with a message from my mother. I left it unread. I looked at the card in the seat pocket and thought about an acronym that matters more than any award: FAST. If a face droops, an arm weakens, speech slurs, call emergency services, time saves brains.